Hi, my name is Nia and I live with my parents, my cute little brother Caleb, and my older sister Irene. I'd always believed that a sister should be a girl's first best friend. When I was younger, I totally idolized Irene. She could do nothing wrong in my eyes. I wanted to do everything just like her. Luckily, this didn't annoy her at all. She'd let me wear her clothes, listen to her music, and even wear her makeup. Before I continue, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more great stories. The problem started on my first day of high school. I was so excited to finally be going to Irene's school. She has always been a social butterfly. She was popular with lots and lots of friends I'd never met because she never brought them over. For a long time, I was the complete opposite. I wasn't lonely though. I had 2 or 3 friends, but I wasn't popular at all. Nobody knew my name. Anyway, my first day of high school was rotten, mostly because of Irene. When my mom dropped us off, Irene started walking ahead of me. "Irene, wait for me!" I shouted, but she walked faster. I was hoping she would show me around or at least help me get to my first class, but when I reached the hallway, it was filled with people and I couldn't find her anywhere. I was scared and nervous, but I managed to find my way around. There were so many unfamiliar faces everywhere, and I felt too shy to say anything to anyone. At lunchtime, I felt relieved because I'd get to meet up with Irene and tell her how my day had been going so far. I really wanted someone to talk to. I went to the cafeteria to get my lunch and spotted her with 2 of her friends. I got my food and went to sit next to them. This seat is reserved," Irene said to me coldly. "Why do you think you can just sit with us? This isn't how high school works. Go look for the table with the losers," one of her other friends laughed. Irene continued to stare at me coldly until I got up. She didn't even tell them I was her sister. I wanted to cry, but I had to hold the tears inside. I couldn't understand how my own sister could treat me like that in front of her friends. I felt like my whole world was falling apart. Later that day, I confronted Irene at home. "How could you treat me like that in front of all your friends? You have no idea how horrible you made me feel. I don't know anyone but you, and you treated me like a stranger," I said. "No hard feelings, sis. You're just not popular enough to sit with us. We can't ruin our reputation by having you around. So at school, just pretend you don't know me, okay?" she said. I had to get used to making a life for myself alone. For the next few months, Irene and I were friends at home but strangers at school. That started to matter less to me though because I started to make new friends. I forgot to mention this, but I love dancing and I've always been a great dancer. One of my favorite things to do was to search for random dance videos on YouTube. I'd watch the routines and I'd be able to do them perfectly in no time. My 2 new friends, Keisha and Darlene, loved dancing too. In fact, it's what brought us together in the first place. After school, we'd find a cool spot to create our own choreographies or copy those we had watched. We always had so much fun. Then one day, Darlene had a great idea. "I've been thinking that we should take our dancing more seriously. Let's give ourselves a name. Then we can start creating our own dance routines. We'll upload them on TikTok and YouTube. Maybe people will start hiring us to dance for money," she said. "That's a great idea," Keisha replied. I agreed too. It was my dream to someday dance in a music video, and I thought this could be a good start. Maybe somebody famous would see us. A girl can dream, right? We brainstormed for a while and finally came up with the name Thunderstorms. We all downloaded TikTok and decided that since I had the better phone, we'd use my account to make and post the videos. Our first video was silly but cool. We introduced ourselves and then did some silly freestyle dances. I went home that day feeling more excited than I had ever felt in a while. "What are you so happy about?" Irene asked as I sat on the couch next to her. "We started a TikTok account and we're going to get famous," I laughed. I didn't really believe it, but I was excited anyway. "Oh, that's cool. I've had an account for months, but I only have about 50 followers. Good luck with that," she replied almost sarcastically. I asked my sister for her TikTok name, found her, and followed her. I had no idea she had created so many videos in the past. There were videos of our pets, her doing her makeup, and there was even one of me sleeping. Thank goodness she barely has any followers, I thought and sighed. "How come you have no followers if you're so popular at school?" I asked. She rolled her eyes and went to the kitchen. The next few weeks were exhilarating. The girls and I got matching outfits, and when we finished coordinating our dances, we'd upload them to TikTok. We asked all our friends to follow, and every day we gained about 20 new followers. We worked really hard trying to make sure our routines were perfect. We tried to make our videos as entertaining as possible, and we'd stay trendy by dancing to popular songs. We started getting offers to dance at small events like birthday parties parties and talent shows. We were getting paid to do what we loved, and we could actually begin saving for college. It was great. The crowd adored us wherever we went, and we gained many more followers on TikTok and YouTube. Then one day, a famous TikToker shared our video. After that, our account blew up with followers and kind comments from new fans. Before we knew it, we had over 200,000 followers. It felt like a dream. Everyone at school knew who we were, and they were all giving us positive feedback about our dances. Meanwhile, Irene became moodier each day. Her TikTok career wasn't going that well. She tried to gain followers by posting boring jokes and makeup tutorials, but I guess her content just wasn't interesting at all. "Hey sis, do you mind sharing one of my videos so I can get some new followers?" she asked me one night. I agreed and did as she asked, but no one followed her. After that, her attitude towards me changed completely. She would barely talk to me at all. Then I noticed that she was trying to turn my own parents against me. She did 3 major horrible things. This is the first one. It was my day to take out the trash. When I went to wrap it up, I noticed that it wasn't there. Then my mom came in screaming, "Nia, there is garbage all over the lawn. Why is there garbage all over the lawn?" "She's lost her mind, Mom. I saw her empty the garbage bag on the grass. Then she just started kicking stuff around. I was too afraid to say anything to her because that kind of behavior is psychotic," Irene said. I stood there with my mouth wide open. I couldn't believe she framed me like that. My mom screamed at me a bit more and made me pick up all the garbage outside. The second thing she did was worse. A few days later, our parents left for work early and let us sleep in. When I got up, I fed the dog, got ready, and rushed to school. Irene was still there. When I got home later, the house was in a complete mess and my parents stared at me like they wanted to murder me. "What is the meaning of all of this?" my dad shouted as he pointed around the house. "Someone left the dog inside. Irene told me she left earlier than you this morning and that you must have left him in the house deliberately. Now why would you do such a stupid thing?" my mom said. The dog had destroyed our couch, pooped on the floor, and removed everything from the shelves that was within his reach. While my parents screamed at me, I saw Irene laughing. I decided not to tell my parents that it really was Irene because I still loved my sister and I wanted to understand why she was trying to sabotage me. That night, I tried to speak to her. I knocked on her bedroom door and went inside. She was busy doing a makeup tutorial for her TikTok channel. "Why have you been trying to get me in trouble? What have I done to you?" I asked. "Go away, I'm busy," she said and rolled her eyes. She wouldn't talk to me, so I walked away. At school the next day, one of my math homework assignments was returned to me and I got every single question wrong. I was horrified because I had double-checked my answers many times before submitting it. "I'll have to call your parents tonight," said Mrs. Henry. I sighed. I knew this would be a disaster. My parents were very strict about my grades and they were furious when I got anything less than an A+ for anything. And it certainly was. She called after dinner and my parents were fuming. "First you trashed the lawn, then the house, and now you're failing your assignments? It's that TikTok nonsense you've been doing. I'm taking your phone away," my mom shouted. "No, you can't. I need it. My friends need it too," I pleaded. "Give it to me," she said, and she grabbed it from my hands. I went up to my room fuming. My dance career was ruined. After I got ready for bed, I cried all night. The next morning, I looked like a horrible mess, and I had a terrible headache. I heard my parents leave the house, and Irene was in the shower. There was no way I was going to school in my condition. I've got to find a way to get in touch with the girls to let them know I don't have a phone anymore, and I'm not coming to school today, I thought. I snuck into Irene's room and took her cell phone off her desk. As I was about to dial Keisha's number, I noticed that Irene's journal was open. I saw my name and wondered what on earth she could have written about me in there. I took the book and hid it under my shirt and forgot about calling my friends. I went back to my room and locked the door. I turned to the first page. It read, "This journal is probably going to be filled with thoughts about how much I hate my sister." What? I thought. I couldn't understand why she would hate me. I flipped to the most recent entry. "I finally got Nia's phone confiscated." I guess it was a really good idea to change all her homework answers. Hopefully her friends won't be able to upload any more dance routines and they'll lose followers. Who the hell does she think she is, trying to be more popular than me? Ugh. I was shocked. I went straight back to her room and pushed the door open. She was getting ready. "Why do you hate me so much?" I shouted at her. "What are you talking about?" she asked. "I just read your journal and it's all about how much you hate me," I answered. "I've hated you since you were born. I was our parents' favorite, then you came and took that from me. You've taken everything from me. I was trying to become TikTok famous and you took that from me too. I hate you," she replied and started crying. Then I spotted my phone on her bed. "What's my phone doing here?" I said while grabbing it. "It's too late now," she said with an evil grin on her face. I opened TikTok and all my content had been deleted and I only had about 1,000 followers left. "What did you do?" I cried. And just like that, my role model became my worst enemy. I eventually got my phone back, but the girls and I decided to use Irene's phone for the videos. It was hard starting from scratch again, but because we were already well known, we were able to get most of our followers back. Our fans wanted to know why we switched accounts, so one day I went live and told them all about the horrible things my sister had done. Now she has no followers at all. People shared my live video and described Irene as the sister from hell. Even her own friends didn't want to talk to her anymore. Months later, I eventually started to feel sorry for her, so I started talking to her again. Things have improved between us, but we still have a weird relationship. I just wish we could be best friends, but I guess that's life. Things don't always go the way you want them to.
Hi there, my name is Cassidy, and this is my twin sister Penelope. In the past few years, we've been through so much, and I decided to share our story here because it's just too crazy to keep to ourselves. Before I continue, please hit that notification bell, like and subscribe for more amazing stories. Everyone seems to think that having a twin is super cool. You can read each other's minds, share all your things, and you'll never be lonely. And for a while, it was cool for real. Our mom and dad would show us off to everyone. Our mom was nice, but we always preferred our dad. He'd always take us out to spoil us, and he was always giving us secret gifts. We were his pride and joy, and everybody knew it. Then, when we were 13 years old, our perfect little life started to change. My mom was pregnant with our baby brother, and my dad decided that he needed to make more money. He was able to get a better job in another state, and he had to move for a while. He said that it wouldn't be permanent, so he didn't want us to come along. He promised to visit once in a while. It was weird living without him, but we got used to it after a while. After my brother was born, my mom started acting weird. She'd only pay attention to him, and she completely ignored us. Then it reached the point where she treated us like we were invisible. I remember it started one Saturday morning. Penelope and I woke up and went downstairs for breakfast. "Good morning, Mom," we said. She ignored us. "What's for breakfast?" I asked. There was no response. I opened the fridge and there was only baby food in there. "Let's just go to McDonald's for breakfast," Penelope said. We got dressed and went out. Luckily, we always saved a bit of our allowance so we could afford to treat ourselves once in a while. "What do you think is wrong with Mom?" I asked with a mouth full of pancakes. "I don't know. I hear some women get all weird after having a baby. Maybe she'll snap out of it soon," Penelope replied. "I hope so," I sighed. Our mom ignored us for another week, so we continued eating out a lot. Then, as we were down to our last dollar, our dad decided to pay us a surprise visit. We came home from school on Friday and just saw him sitting there happily in our living room. "Dad!" we both screamed while running into his arms. "My pride and joy, my baby girls, how have you been?" he asked. "We're fine, but we think something is wrong with Mom," I said. Then Penelope nudged me in the stomach. My mom walked in with a bright smile on her face. "Now, there's my lovely family. Dinner's ready. Hi, girls. How was your day at school?" she asked. "Huh?" I said, and my sister looked just as confused. We went to the dinner table anyway. Our dad told us that he'd taken the week off because he missed us so much and that he had made some amazing plans. He let us take a whole week off school, and we went somewhere fun every day. It's almost like he forgot he had a newborn baby and a wife at home. The day before his flight, we canceled our plans and asked if we could all stay home together. We thought this would make our mom happy, but no luck. She was grumpy all day. The day after my dad left, my mom was back to ignoring us. She did this for about a week. Then she'd actually talk to us, but almost everything she said was hateful. I remember when we asked her if we could have some money to buy dresses for the school dance. "Why would you want to go to the dance anyway? I doubt any boy would ask you two out," she said. "Because you're both really ugly and dumb. I don't see why any boy would waste their time on you. Anyway, you're not getting any of my money." We were sad and eventually decided not to go to the dance. Another time, we asked her for permission to go to a friend's sleepover. "What kind of crazy person would invite you two losers to their house anyway?" she asked. "Samantha is our friend, Mom. She's been our friend since kindergarten. Don't you remember her?" Cassidy asked. "Why would I waste my time trying to remember your friends? Anyway, you're not going anywhere. You have to stay home to babysit your brother. I'm going out tonight." she snapped. So we stayed home that night and had our own little sleepover with Jonathan. Cassidy and I were happy that we at least had each other and an adorable little brother. Still, we couldn't figure out what was wrong with our mom. It didn't seem like postpartum depression because she was very kind to Jonathan. She was quite happy too. She only became angry if she saw us or if we spoke to her. This continued for about 2 years. She'd treat us terribly and magically transform into the perfect mom whenever my dad came home. Every time he came, he noticed that we had no new clothes or shoes, so he'd take us shopping. He continued to treat us like we were his little princesses, and every time he left, my mom became angrier. Her hatefulness grew worse and worse. Instead of just saying hateful things, she started making our lives hell. Penelope, did you wake up in the middle of the night to cut your hair? I asked as I gasped at my sister, who woke up looking like a boy. What do you mean? She said while rubbing her eyes. Then she looked at me and her mouth dropped. Where's all your hair? She asked. We ran to the mirror, looked at ourselves, and screamed. At that moment, Jonathan walked in. Mommy throw hair in garbage. Now I have big bothers, he said, then smiled adorably. We were confused, but went straight to the trash can to check. And there it was, her beautiful hair under some old banana peels. We cried, and when our mom came in laughing, we asked her why she had done it. You spend too much money on hair products, and besides, your hair is ugly anyway. Just put on a hat and shut up, she said and walked away laughing. Our dad didn't come home for an entire year that year, and I think it was definitely the worst year of our lives. Our mother realized that she couldn't really break our spirits at home, so she tried to embarrass us instead. She did many horrible things, but the worst one was when she trashed our bedroom, took pictures, and came to our school and passed them out to our friends and classmates. She told everyone that we were dirty and never tidied up after ourselves. We became the laughingstock of the entire school. Our principal asked to speak to our mom that day because he didn't appreciate her doing that. While she was in his office, she told him that we were abusive daughters and she really didn't know what to do with us anymore. He called us in while she was there to scold us. Your mother says you twins are unmanageable. I'm going to give her the name of a boot camp nearby, and if I don't hear about an improvement in your behavior soon, I'll arrange to have you sent there myself. The next week, my mother went back to him and told him we had stolen her money. We were off to boot camp that weekend. It was an awful place for the most horrible types of girls we had ever met. We all slept in one huge dormitory which smelled disgusting. I swear none of those girls had ever heard of a shower. We had to wake up at 4 in the morning to run laps around the field. Then we had a horrible breakfast of stale bread and old tea. After that, we were given ridiculous chores to complete. On our first day, Penelope and I were given toothbrushes and asked to clean all the toilets in the building. Then we did more running, push-ups, and all sorts of strange exercises, while huge women screamed at us. It was like receiving the worst sort of punishment for doing nothing wrong. We went home after a week, completely broken and exhausted. I hope you learned your lesson, our mom said. Why did you do that to us? What lesson did we have to learn? What have we done to you? I asked. She smiled. We went straight to our room. We need to call Dad to let him know what's going on. We have to find a way to get out of here, Penelope said. Mom took our cell phones. How are we going to call him? I asked. Don't worry, Cassidy. I'll find a way, she replied. The next day was Monday, and we went to school as usual. Before our first class, Penelope pulled me into the bathroom and said, Look, I got Mom's phone. Let's call Dad. Wow, how'd you pull that off? I gasped. Just as I grabbed the phone, I saw a text message from our Aunt Suzette, our mom's sister, who was never really fond of us. It read, I think that's a drastic measure. Maybe you should reconsider. What are they talking about? I asked. Let's find out, Penelope replied. We read through their text messages and suddenly it became very clear why our mother was being so mean to us. She told our aunt that she felt that our father paid more attention to us and that she was jealous. They laughed about how she sent us to boot camp and how she cut her hair. But the most horrifying thing we read was that our mother was considering poisoning us. We weren't sure if she meant it as a joke, but we did not want to take any chances. We ran straight to the principal's office to show him, thinking that he could help and get us removed from that house. As soon as we opened the door, our mother was in there crying and our principal looked very upset. Your mother told me what you girls did this morning. I'm very disappointed in you, he said. What are you talking about? I asked. You don't remember setting fire to the living room before leaving for school this morning? He shouted. We did not do that. Listen, our mother is jealous of us. She's crazy. We have her phone to prove it. Please, help us. Penelope cried. She handed the cell phone to the principal. Why did you take your mom's phone? He asked. To call our dad. She took our phones away and we need to call him. She's going to try to poison us soon if we aren't taken away, I said. Our mother started to argue, but he told her to be quiet and began reading the texts. She tried to say it wasn't her phone, but when he called her number, it rang. I'm calling the police, he shouted. My mother stood and ran out the door. We sat down, relieved that someone had finally believed us. He called our dad too and explained the whole story. He was very apologetic and promised not to jump to conclusions ever again. We live with our dad now. My mom is in prison, so we all moved away. Our baby brother is confused, but I think he'll be fine. But guess what? Our dad has a whole new family too. He has a girlfriend named Sandra and 2 kids. This was why he wasn't coming home to see us. It turns out my mom was jealous of the wrong people all along.
Ever since I could remember, it was just me and my mom. My dad abandoned us when I was just a baby, and my mom never had any other boyfriends. As you can expect, Mom and I were really close, and I actually liked that there was no one else around. That way, I had my mom all to myself. Though sometimes I would feel jealous of the other kids whenever they had their brothers or sisters to play with. I was on my own, and a lot of the time my mom was busy working, so she couldn't play with me. Sometimes in those moments, I really wished I had a brother or sister, but I guess I should have been careful for what I wished for. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more crazy stories. Things were pretty normal. My mom and I had a great routine going on. Every day I would get up for school and my mom would make me pancakes before she went off to work. Then once I got home from school, we'd watch TV together, and then I'd go off to do homework while Mom made dinner. We'd eat dinner together, sometimes out in the garden, sometimes in the kitchen, or sometimes even while watching TV. And then we'd have a game of cards. I was the undefeated champion until I was 12 years old, though maybe my mom let me win. We'd have a hot chocolate sometimes before going to bed, and if I was lucky, Mom would let me have marshmallows too, and then we'd go to sleep. Life was pretty normal. I didn't want anything to change. I know, change is inevitable. But I didn't want anything to be different. Sure, my mom could meet somebody new and have a boyfriend, and I've never admitted this before, I didn't want her to find somebody new. I loved it when it was just the 2 of us. And I most certainly didn't want a sibling. That was the last thing I wanted. But well, that's exactly what I got. The first few things that started to change was our routine. Where we would usually have a game of cards, suddenly my mom would say she'd need to go out to buy something quick, and she would be gone for hours. Then sometimes, when she returned home, she wouldn't even have bought anything. I was very suspicious. Was she meeting up with a secret boyfriend? I asked her what she was hiding from me, but she laughed and told me it was nothing. I was still suspicious, though. Then something else happened that turned my world upside down. When I was 15 years old, a new kid moved to our school. Her name was Charlotte, and she was quite a shy kid. We took all the same classes, so I pretty much saw her all the time, but I didn't speak to her that much if I was being honest. She didn't have that many friends, and she always ate lunch on her own. When I told Mom about the new kid at school, she immediately said I needed to be friends with her. But why? I asked. She's so shy, I don't really think she's my kind of friend. She's a new kid, replied Mom. You should give her a chance. Go on, Abigail, just do it. The next day at school, I asked Charlotte if she'd like to come sit with us, and she was really eager. When she got more familiar with us, she wasn't such a shy kid anymore. She started chatting a lot, and usually she was pretty funny. If anything, I actually got a little jealous, because it seemed like my friends liked Charlotte more than me. My friends even said we looked alike. I didn't see it, but they said we had the same eyes and the same hair color too. I was annoyed and I decided I didn't want to be friends with Charlotte anymore. She might steal my friends. But one day after school, we were walking out of class together when Mom came to pick me up. She spotted me standing next to Charlotte and walked over. Hi, Abigail, said Mom. Then she looked at Charlotte. You must be Charlotte. Yes, said Charlotte, and she smiled. Charlotte, said Mom, you should come over for a play date. I'm making spaghetti bologna tonight. Do you want to come over? Oh, I would love to, said Charlotte with happiness. I was so shocked. Why had my mom done that? She didn't usually ask people over randomly. Usually she'd consult me first to see if I even wanted to come, and I most certainly did not want Charlotte to come. But I couldn't say that now because it was rude. I sighed and we both followed Mom to the car. When we got home, I was nervous because I didn't know what to do with Charlotte. But Mom took care of that. It was more like a play date between Charlotte and my mom than me. She taught Charlotte how to play the game of cards we always played, and I was annoyed to find that Charlotte was even better than me. Then my mom turned on the TV, and she and Charlotte sat on the couch watching our favorite TV show, whilst I sat moodily in the kitchen. We had dinner, and after that, Mom made hot chocolate. She asked me if I wanted one, and I said no because I was jealous. But Mom didn't seem to notice, and so she and Charlotte enjoyed their hot chocolate with marshmallows while I had nothing. Why did Mom like Charlotte so much? She didn't usually do this with my other friends. What was so special about Charlotte? Finally, the night ended, and Mom offered to drop Charlotte home. At first, Mom said Charlotte could stay over, but I had to put my foot down then. No, I think it's best if Charlotte goes home, I said. There was an awkward silence after that, but I didn't care. Charlotte wasn't even a real friend. I didn't even like her that much. Mom drove Charlotte home, and she returned a few hours later. So, what do you think about Charlotte? She asked. I don't know, I said. She's okay, I guess. Oh, come on, she's great, said Mom. You should really want to be your friend. I was suspicious then. Why do you want me to be your friend so bad? I asked. Mom looked uncomfortable then. Oh, it's nothing, she said, but I could tell she was lying. After that, Mom had somehow got Charlotte's phone number, and this time she would invite Charlotte over without even asking me. Charlotte practically came over every night, despite me never wanting her to. I was so annoyed. This wasn't fair. My mom couldn't just force me to be friends with Charlotte, but it also seemed like Charlotte wanted to be friends with me. She was always so nice to me and always tried to make conversation, but I was stubbornly silent. She may have wanted to be friends with me, but I didn't want to be friends with her. Then, to my horror, Mom started calling Charlotte honey and darling, as if Charlotte was her own daughter. I was so angry. It was as if Mom was trying to replace me. Every time Charlotte came over, I would lock myself in my room. But that meant I never really got to see Mom, since Charlotte and Mom were practically best buds. Sometimes Mom would ask me to come down to hang out too, but I never listened. For a long time, I believed Mom loved Charlotte more than me. Then, one time, Mom offered to take us all to the zoo for a day out. Charlotte was pretty much living at our house now. I refused to go. I said I was feeling sick, but I wasn't really. I just didn't want to have to spend the day with Charlotte. It's not that I didn't like her. She was actually a pretty nice person, and if my mom hadn't been so forceful, I probably would have been her friend, maybe even best friends. But now that Charlotte was practically stealing my mom, I didn't want anything to do with her. I think Mom could tell I was lying, but she decided to go anyway. That really hurt me. My mom would rather spend the day with my friend than her own daughter. I thought, I just have to accept it. My mom is trying to replace me. While they were out having a lovely time at the zoo, I decided to go watch some TV downstairs. After feeling bored of that for a while, I thought that I would go into my mom's room to get some money to buy an ice cream down at the store. Surely she wouldn't mind. She did ditch me for the zoo. But when I was in my mom's room, I noticed one of the drawers was left open, and I could see a picture inside. I picked it up and smiled because it was a picture of me as a baby with my mom. But then my jaw dropped, because that's when I realized that my mom was holding 2 babies, which meant I was a twin? I couldn't believe this. I was a twin? Where was my other twin? What had happened to them? Then I noticed another piece of paper in the drawer. It was a birth certificate. There were 2 of them. There was mine, with my name clearly on it, then another one, and what I saw really shocked me. It was Charlotte. Charlotte was my twin. How could I have a twin? Why had Charlotte been missing from my life for all this time? Why hadn't my mom told me? All these questions zoomed in my mind, and then I heard a car pull in. My mom and Charlotte were home. I decided I had to confront them then and there. I ran downstairs and shouted, "Charlotte is my twin?" Mom froze. Then she sighed. Yes, it's true. Charlotte stared at me, and she didn't seem all that shocked. You knew? I asked Charlotte. She nodded. I couldn't believe this. Are you trying to replace me? I yelled at Mom. What? She asked in shock. No, of course not. And then she explained everything to me. Mom wasn't trying to replace me. She was just trying to make us feel comfortable with each other, and she was hoping we'd feel that twin connection. She wanted Charlotte to move in with us permanently, but she knew if she had told me I had a twin suddenly, I would find it hard to adapt. Mom said that she had actually kidnapped Charlotte. Well, more like rescued her from our dad. At birth, we were separated, so Mom took me and Dad took Charlotte. Mom explained that Dad was a terrible person and had given Charlotte a bad life, and Mom had wanted to save Charlotte. That's why Mom had disappeared at random times. She had been visiting Charlotte, who was now living in hiding at a motel. When Mom said this, Charlotte had nodded in agreement, so I guessed it was true. While I was trying to process all this information, another car pulled in the driveway. "Who could that be?" asked Mom in confusion, and then a man showed up. "Dad!" yelled Charlotte. I looked at the man who was my father. His face was red with rage, and he seemed to be drunk. Then, without warning, he leapt forward and tried to attack my mom. I was so shocked. Everything had happened so fast. I was practically frozen with shock. But then Charlotte came to the rescue and pushed my dad off and forced him outside. She locked the door and immediately called the police. I realized that Charlotte may have just saved my mom's life. Our dad was arrested for attacking my mom. I was so scared my mom would go to prison for technically kidnapping Charlotte, even though Charlotte had been willing, but Mom actually ended up winning custody of Charlotte since the judge could see just how bad her father was. And me? I've now had a change of heart. I'm actually so glad to have a twin. I never realized it, but I had missed out on so much by not having a sister. I regret not being able to grow up with Charlotte, but we're now making up on those lost years, and so is Mom. We are a happy family now, and I love it.
As soon as I opened our front door, the smell of freshly baked bread and cinnamon filled my nostrils. I kicked off my shoes and ran to the kitchen, still soaked from the rain that poured on me while biking home. My mom was brushing the powdered sugar off her hands on her apron, and a loaf of bread was cooling on a rack next to a slightly opened window. "Hi, honey, how was school?" my mom asked me, pushing some of the hair on my forehead back and planting a kiss on my forehead. "Mom," I said, annoyed that she still did that as if I were a kid. "What did you bake?" I asked as she grabbed a plate and a knife to slice the bread. "It's a regular loaf of bread, but I made a cinnamon swirl that I hope shows in every slice. I wanted to try it out before adding it to the menu," she said as she made a few slices, the swirl showing perfectly in each one. Moments like these were when I marveled at our home. Although outside it was dark, stormy, and pouring rain, the yellow lighting of our kitchen, the warmth and the smell of cinnamon made me close my eyes and enjoy the moment. We sat at the kitchen island with our slices of bread and drinks. I dipped my bread in hot cocoa and snickered at my mom muttering something about me ruining her masterpiece. "What's wrong, honey? You look worried," she asked when I was suddenly deep in thought. Earlier that day, our history teacher told me that if I didn't ace the following tests, I was going to fail his class. "It's school stuff. You wouldn't understand," I sighed. "Boy, I had you when I was a high school junior. You don't think I'll understand trouble at school?" She chuckled at me. I explained to her that I was failing history and that my teacher wasn't lenient at all, and that I could fail the year if I did bad and struggled despite putting in extra work. "Well, there's a parent-teacher meeting soon. I could go talk to him," she said, immediately making me feel better. If anyone could convince my teacher of going easy on me, it was my mom, most persuasive person in the world. The day of the parent-teacher meeting came, and I stopped by my mom's bakery to ask her if she was still going. The familiar bell rang as I opened the door. Julie, a girl who worked for my mom, was at the cash register. "Hey, Jules," I greeted her when I came in. She gave me a small wave as she handed a customer her change. "Busy day?" I asked. "The morning had me spinning. Your mom's cinnamon swirl thing was a huge success, and now people are getting food to bribe teachers at the school later." "Where's Mom?" I asked. "Baking her bribe in the back," she said, turning back to count some money in the cash register. I walked past her and into the kitchen where Mom was putting a batch of cookies in the oven. "Are those?" I began, but they were. My favorite marshmallow brownie cookies. Mom was wearing a pair of jeans and a red blouse. I noticed she had curled her hair a bit and put on heels instead of her usual sneakers. She looked much more like a mom now than she did usually, but she looked like the kind of mom that distracts your friends. We talked in the kitchen for a while, until the oven beeped. The cookies were placed in a basket, and Mom made her way towards the school. I was watching a movie in the living room and eating popcorn when Mom finally got home. Hours had passed since the time the meeting should have ended, and I was beginning to worry. She kicked off her heels immediately, sighing in relief, and she stumbled towards the couch, plopping down next to me. She told me the meeting went well and that they went out for drinks afterwards. She asked him to help me out a bit, and he agreed, to my relief. He also told me you're pretty distracted with Adrian, she said. I know he's failing too, and I know how close you two are, so I asked Mr. Harrison to help him out too. I immediately texted my best friend to tell him the good news, and he was thrilled. At school, Mr. Harrison was suddenly nicer to me. He smiled at me in the halls, complimented me, and went easy on me when grading my tests. I also caught him smirking in my direction sometimes, but I ignored it. My best friend Adrian was also being treated better by Mr. Harrison. Mom was suddenly swatting my hand away when I reached for an extra muffin and stuff like that, saying they were for Bruce. She started properly dating Mr. Harrison. Sometimes I'd come home from Adrian's and I'd finish them watching a movie on the couch all cuddled up. It upset me a lot, but I realized my father was never in the picture and Mom hadn't had a boyfriend since high school. Plus, she seemed happy, so I got over it. One night, she told me she was going on a date with Bruce, so I asked Adrian to come over for a sleepover. We played video games in the living room for hours until we popped in a movie and I fell asleep in the middle of it. I woke up around 2 in the morning and didn't see Adrian, but I noticed the kitchen light was on. I rubbed my eyes and started walking towards it, but I heard voices. It was my mom and Adrian. I started eavesdropping. I just wanted to thank you for talking to Mr. Harrison for me, Adrian said, but in a weird way. I knew this voice he was making. It was the voice he used when he was flirting with girls. It was no problem, Adrian. You're Jackson's best friend, my mom said, in a totally normal voice. It was clear that my best friend was flirting with my mom, but she wasn't flirting back. But seriously, thank you, he repeated, and I could hear him moving. And as I said, my mom began, it's no problem at all. Now she sounded different. I recognized this too. She talked to Mr. Harrison like this. I couldn't stand it, so I peeked around the corner and into the kitchen. My mom had her back pressed against the kitchen island, and Adrian was sort of cornering her against it. Mom's hand was on his chest, and since he was a tall guy, she was looking up at him. I noticed Adrian was starting to dip his head down, so I quickly walked into the kitchen. I saw them jump apart, but rubbed my eyes to make it seem like I didn't. Hey guys, what are you doing up? I asked in a fake, groggy voice. Nothing, bud, just came for some water. Adrian jumped to get a cup and filled it with water, after which he pushed me out of the kitchen and we went back to sleep on the couch. I really didn't feel like talking to him about what I saw, but as he snored next to me, I laid awake, staring at the ceiling. I usually hung out with Adrian at his house because it was nicer, but suddenly we were always at mine. He kept making up excuses for us to go to mine instead of his. And I had a sneaking suspicion that it was because he wanted to see my mom. Every time we were at home, I caught him staring at her and he was trying to find ways to touch her, like passing her a plate and lingering his fingers, or walking past her and putting his hand on her back. I thought it was gross, but I felt that if I brought it up, it would only become more real. One day, I was biking home from the store after Mom sent me to get some baking supplies, and when I came back, I found Adrian mowing the lawn, and he wasn't wearing a shirt. I was so pissed off. I was about to jump him, but then my mom came out of the house and handed him his shirt. I spilled orange juice on it, and your mom offered to rinse it out so I wouldn't get all sticky, he explained, laughing at the image without context. Not only was Adrian always in my house with Mom, but they started baking together, and soon enough, Adrian was working at the bakery with her after school. I asked him about it, and he said it was weird, but he just replied, I'm saving up for a new laptop, and your mom offered me the job to help me save up. I hated how he had a logical explanation for everything. Things started hanging. Mom was paying more attention to my friend than to me, and it was really getting on my nerves. Not only that, but school was starting to get bad again. We had a history test, and I was expecting the low B that was my average, but when I saw my marked test, I had a huge F. I glanced over to Adrian, he had a B. I didn't understand why I got such a low grade, so I stayed behind after class to talk to Mr. Harrison. How did I get an F when my mom told you to help me? I asked him before he shushed me and rushed to close the door. Do you have any idea the trouble we'd be in if anyone found out? He said in his exasperated manner. He answered my question by saying my mom had told him at dinner a few days ago to go harder on me again and instead go easier on Adrian. I was so confused. Was Mom picking him over me? I was furious, so I stormed out of the classroom and grabbed my bike. I biked a few blocks until I reached my mom's bakery, where I knew she would be. I was ready to confront her about her thing with Adrian as I burst through the door, but the front of the store was empty. I figured she must be in the kitchen, so I stalked to the back and swung the door open, only to find my mom kissing my best friend. My mom gasped when she saw me and pushed Adrian off of her, rushing towards me, but I slammed the door before she could get to it and sped home as fast as I could. I avoided my mom and Adrian for weeks after I caught them. I snuck out of the house before Mom woke up and came back very late or when I knew she wasn't home. I avoided Adrian like the plague at school, not even bothering to hide it. I was trying to come up with a way to get back at them, or at least get them to stop, because as far as I knew, they were still making out when I wasn't looking. My history grade started to go up, so I guess I got that out of it, but it wasn't enough. I was packing up my stuff after history one day when Mr. Harrison asked me to stay behind because he wanted to talk. He sat on his desk, fidgeting nervously as I waited for him to just spit it out. Then he finally did. He wanted to ask my mom to marry him, but didn't know how to do it. Is there anything she finds romantic? Something special? He looked nervous and excited. I felt kind of bad for the guy. At that moment, I felt like a light bulb popped up above my head, and I had a plan. As soon as I got home, I started working on it. 2 days later, Mr. Harrison went to order a very special cake, my mom's favorite, on the bakery's website. When he went to the other tab to pay for it, the bakery's new logo popped up. It read, "Nothing better than a cake and a kiss with your son's best friend." Not only did my mom get dumped, but Adrian failed history, which led to him failing the year. Serves them right.